We are live. We are live with the live Q&A. How is it going? Lee Hayward here, your muscle building and fat loss coach with another video Q&A for Friday, October the 29th. And the way these video chats work is I am going to be hanging out here for the next hour, answering any questions and topics of discussion that you would like to cover with regards to fitness, nutrition, building muscle, losing body fat, getting in your best shape, any specific challenges that you're dealing with when it comes to your workouts, with your eating plan, with supplementation, or whatever. Any challenges that you have when it comes to fitness and nutrition and all that good stuff, let me know by typing into our video chat window there, and I'll do the best that I can to help you out over the course of our chat today. And also, let me know who's tuning in and where are you tuning in from. Got Dan joining in, a regular to the chat. Thumbs up. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. So who else is tuning in live right now for our Friday video chat? And just a heads up, this is something that I'm going to be doing every Friday. Like I normally do it every Friday, even though over the summer I did take a wee hiatus for a few weeks off. But over the fall now, this is going to be a regular thing. So every Friday afternoon at approximately 4 p.m. Eastern time-ish, when I get everything underway. I had a few technical difficulties on my end when it came to the computer and the setup here, so I was a few minutes late starting today. But nonetheless, here I am doing the video chat as normal. And hopefully this is coming through loud and clear. I always do normally check the audio and video, make sure it is coming through loud and clear on your end. It seems to be coming through on my end. So if you can do me a favor and just type into the chat window and say, hey, loud and clear, if it is coming in loud and clear. And if it's not, I'm sure somebody will say it's not. Because I've had that happen before where I got wound up, started jumping in and answering questions. And heck, I was like 5 or 10 minutes into the chat before I realized, microphone wasn't plugged in or some stupid thing like that was going wrong. So if it is coming through loud and clear, let me know in the chat there. Let me see. Loud and clear. Good stuff. All right. There's always a delay. Like when I'm talking and versus when you actually hear it, there's like a 15-second delay or thereabouts. Just the way things work through the magic of the internet and live streaming video. So it's technically not live. You're getting this like in a 15-second delay, but it's close enough to live. All right. I'm going to jump in now and start answering some questions. I actually had a couple submitted after last week's call, or last week's Q&A that I want to address. And I think these are good ones because can probably relate to a lot of people probably can relate to some of these questions. One was sent in by Ethan, and he says he was on the live stream last week, really loved the content, and he said he'd like some advice. He's 17 years old, a skinny fat individual, and he was told to bulk up, which led him to overeating, and he actually ended up looking worse. He says, I recently decided to do a recomp, and it seems to be working. I've lost some body fat, put on some muscle, but I seem to be losing strength. It just may be a plateau, but honestly, I don't know whether it's worth to bulk and cut or to continue recomp. Says he trains 6 days a week, does a push-pull leg split, and he mentioned some of his lifts that he was doing. He says like his bench press and some other core compound lifts have actually went down. And his goal is to achieve a lean physique and build muscle and lose body fat. All right, so that's a pretty common situation, right? I mean, heck, you want to build muscle, lose fat, look better, feel better, and get stronger. And first off, I'm going to address the topic of should you bulk or should you cut? And I'm not a fan of either, especially bulking, right? Because bulking is, for a lack of a better word, it's an excuse to get fat. And while it may help initially, like especially if someone's really underweight and they just start massively consuming excess calories, yes, in that initial phase, in the initial few weeks, you're going to fill out your glycogen stores and you're going to have more energy. You're going to put on some weight, but it's going to quickly tip to the phase where it's not lean weight you're gaining. It's going to be primarily excess body fat. And the thing is, you only can build muscle so fast. So trying to force yourself to gain muscle by eating more and bulking up, it's actually a shortcut to getting fat. And the deceiving part is the weight goes up on the scale, and you may see your lifts in the gym go up because now you've got that extra glycogen in your system, the extra water retention, which also helps to make you stronger and fuller. And in the short term, you'll see some quick benefits, especially if your goal is to get bigger and stronger. You'll see some quick benefits, but it's going to quickly get to the point where those benefits are going to kind of like diminish. But then if you continue to eat a bulking diet, you're going to pile on excess body fat. And this happens so often. I mean, of course, there's a few exceptions to the rules. There's a few unicorns out there who have rapid, fast metabolisms, and for some reason, they just don't store body fat very easily. I mean, there are some rare exceptions, but more often than not, like the average person, like 80 or 90% of us, if we try and bulk, we're going to get fat. And I'm speaking from experience because I tried to bulk when I was younger. And yeah, I filled out my frame, put on weight, but it wasn't good weight. And if I could make a change, like if I could go back in time and talk to the young Lee Hayward, who was just getting started with all this, I would have never bulked. That would be one thing I would not have done. I would have been much more patient and preferred to make leaner, slower quality gains versus just trying to pack on size as quickly as possible, because it's ultimately setting you back in the long term, because all that weight you gain when you eventually want to switch gears and cut, then you got to sacrifice all that size. And very often you're in such a calorie deficit to try and cut the fat that you gained while bulking that you end up sacrificing a lot of the muscle that you've gained along with it. So it's like taking a step forward and a step back. Like you're not making any progress. And I used to go through this year after year when I was competing in bodybuilding, the typical off-season bulking and pre-contest cutting. And after going through that phase where I'd let my weight balloon up, sometimes 40 to 50 pounds over contest weight, and then diet off that 40 to 50 pounds again in a pre-contest cut, I was the same. Like I'd be coming in at the same weight each time. I mean, I wasn't actually gaining size or quality. And it was very frustrating. I mean, I'd go through that big yo-yo up and down, up and down, up and down. I did that over and over again for years. I mean, sometimes I'd make a little progress, and it wasn't necessarily due to the bulking and cutting. It's just like maybe I'd hit my peak a little better or something like that, and I'd look a little sharper come contest time, if I dieted extra hard or whatever. But this whole bulk and cut in between, it's honestly a waste of time, and it ultimately sets you back, and it hinders your progress in the long term. You're much better off staying lean and making leaner gains. And this is a more common trend that we see a lot of people doing and recommending these days. And this is what I do and what I recommend. And a lot of people refer to it as a body recomposition, where you're trying to gain lean muscle while burn body fat at the same time. And you need to look at the bigger picture. You need to realize that you can only build muscle so fast. You can't pile on slabs of muscle, regardless of what the what anybody tells you, or what the latest supplement ad tries to make you believe, or like all the influencers and stuff and all the hype and people saying, hey, follow my super duper program and you'll pack on 25 pounds of ripped muscle in 30 days, or like all this BS. Like, no, it ain't happening. Nobody's getting ripped and huge in the matter of a few weeks. It takes a long time to build a big muscular physique. It's a lot easier and quicker to lose body fat. I mean, to kind of put some numbers out there, pretty much anybody, unless you're extremely obese and overweight, but like most average people, you can get ripped within a year or less. That's pretty standard. Like you could have visible abdominal definition within a year or less, but it takes years to build a big muscular physique. And to prove my point, look at the people who you admire, whether that's social media influencers, whether that's athletes, bodybuilders, fitness models, actors, whatever. Like just think of anybody that you admire, anybody's physique that you look up to. How long have they been training for? Like they didn't do it in 30 days or some quick fix program, or like go on a 90-day transformation and go from zero to hero. Chances are they've been training for years and years and years. Like even the young guys, like you look at someone who's like in their mid-20s, and he's probably like a social media influencer, maybe on YouTube or Instagram or whatever. First off, probably got really good genetics, if he's at that level. But second of all, he's probably been doing it for 10 years or more, because a lot of these guys are starting off in their early to mid-teens. And then by the time they're 25, they've got 10 years or more of solid training under their belt. So it wasn't some overnight quick fix. I mean, you look at him and think, oh my God, like he's only 25 and he's huge and he's ripped. Yeah, but he's been training since he was 15, right? So, I mean, it's 10 years of solid training plus good genetics. And that's what you're not seeing. You need to look at the bigger picture, right? It takes time to build muscle. And the best way to go about it is to focus on slow, steady progress. So when it comes to nutrition for a fat loss program and a muscle building program, there's actually very little difference, because you still want to eat the same foods, the same quality nutrition in both cases, right? Like if your goal is to burn body fat, I mean, you still want to fuel your body with high quality protein, nutrient dense foods, lots of vegetables and healthy fats and complex carbohydrates in the right amount. I mean, now when it's fat loss, you want to be in a slight deficit, but still eating that high nutrient, high volume food. When it's for lean gains, you're still going to eat the same foods, your lean protein, your vegetables, healthy fats, complex carbohydrates, and all that good stuff. But you're just ever so slightly going to bump up the portions so that you're no longer in a deficit, but you're at maintenance or a very slight surplus. That's it. There's no like bulk, like, hey, I'm bulking, look out, here comes the McDonald's drive-through and all this stuff because I'm on a bulk. And then when it comes to cutting, well, look out, here I'm eating tuna and water. No, it doesn't have to be this black and white extreme contrast. I'm on the stuffing myself bulking diet, or I'm on the starving myself cutting diet. It's the same diet. It's just you ever so slightly decrease the calories so that you're in a slight deficit when it comes to fat loss. And then when you're bulking, it's in a very slight surplus. And when I say slight, I'm talking like 100 to 200 calories a day over maintenance. Like that's enough. And most guys are not super strict when it comes to counting their calories. And so even if you strive for maintenance, chances are you're probably going to underestimate it, and that would bump you into a slight surplus. So that's why I recommend a lot of people say, hey, if you're trying to lean gain and have a body recomposition, strive for maintenance. And chances are that will put you in a very slight surplus, and you'll actually start to build some lean muscle. And even if you do maintain your body weight, very often through proper training, nutrition, lifestyle habits, all that, you're going to achieve a body recomposition where you'll build lean muscle and burn body fat simultaneously. So there may not be a huge change on the scale, but your body fat percentage will improve, your lean muscle will improve, and the quality of your physique will improve. And this is very common as well when people have a good structured program in place. But don't be in such a big hurry to try and pack on the pounds, because when you pack on the pounds quickly, it's not good pounds. It's just sloppy fat that you're going to ultimately have to diet off later on, and it's just basically setting you back. So I'm not a fan of that by any stretch. Now, to go back to some of the other points that Ethan was discussing there in his question, he says he's lost some strength. Anytime you lose body weight, you're going to see some strength loss, especially in your big compound lifts. And the reason for this is because when you have extra weight on, even if it's extra fat and water and bloat, that's going to make you feel stronger in your big lifts. For example, like if you look at some of the best squatters in the world, like world record squatters, they've got big torsos, big stomachs, because that thick torso helps give them a solid base to squat from. It's very rare to see someone who's got a super skinny waist and a massive, huge squat. I mean, of course, there's some exceptions to the rules. There always is. But generally speaking, if someone's a big squatter, they're thick, right? They got a big torso because they can use that thickness to help actually rebound and generate power out of the bottom of the squat. Same thing when you look at someone who's a big bench presser. Chances are they're thick. They're thick in the chest. They're thick in the torso. And that thickness helps to add power. So that size actually helps. And the general rule of thumb in powerlifting is like for every 5 pounds of body weight you gain, even if it's not all lean body weight, you'll probably put on 10 pounds to your bench press. So, I mean, if your goal is just to get big and strong at all costs and you don't care about body composition, then yes, piling on weight does work. And that's why when you look at a lot of top level power lifters, like world's strongest man competitors, I mean, most of these guys are not lean, six-pack abs ripped. Like they're big, they're stocky, they've got guts that stick up further than their chest. I mean, they got a lot of mass, but they also got a lot of body fat. But that helps to give them strength and power and gives them that core stability in just that sheer thickness, that sheer mass, right? So, I mean, you got to look at it. What is it you're training for, right? Like, do you just want to be big and strong at all costs, like a strongman competitor? Or do you want to have that lean, athletic, fitness model type look, right? If that's what you're after, you want the aesthetics and the athletic performance and a lean physique, then you got to train for that. And this is where it can be confusing sometimes, because people want it all. Like, I want to be the biggest, I want to be the strongest, I want to be the most ripped, I want to have the endurance of a marathon runner, and I want to have the strength of an elite level power lifter. And like, you can't have it all. You got to figure out, like, what is it that you want? Like, you can't be this quote unquote Superman where, like, hey, I got the strength, I got the stamina, I got the conditioning, and I got everything. You got to find and focus what it is that you really want to have. And this is something that, I mean, everybody goes through. Like, competitive bodybuilders, when they diet down for competition, even though they're lean, they're ripped, and they look really good, their strength goes down, right? Nobody's hitting personal best, bench presses and squats and deadlifts the week before a bodybuilding competition, because they're so depleted, they're so deprived, and they're so lean at that stage that their strength goes down, right? That's just natural. When you lose weight, you're going to lose some strength. Now, the thing is, if you can balance it so that you're not in an extreme calorie deficit, you're kind of in that maintenance phase, you can actually learn to balance that, and your body will adapt, and you can start to build some strength at that maintenance calorie phase, as long as you're not too extreme with it. But it's going to take some time. And when you initially change your diet, so let's say you initially switch from a bulking, hey, I'm eating everything and anything and slamming back excess calories, to now you're eating maintenance or slight deficit. Yeah, in that transition, you're going to lose some weight, you're going to lose some strength. But once you stabilize at the new calorie intake, then you can actually start to build some new strength from that point onwards. But you're going to have to see that initial drop before you'll start to see the strength start to climb again at that new body weight and that new calorie intake. So the thing is, you really need to focus on what it is that you want to prioritize. And if you want some help with this, like, that's the whole purpose. I mean, like, this chat, I mean, I'm trying to share some stuff, but if you want some help, feel free to reach out to me. You can message me, we can chat and, come up with some action steps and brainstorm some ideas. And if I can help you, I'll let you know. And if not, then I'll try and recommend some outside resources to help you when it comes to reaching these goals. But I just want to kind of give you a bigger picture throughout this chat here today. All right, what else we got there? Let's see. Another question that came through, and I'm going to answer this one before I get into answering your questions. And just to let you know, for everybody who's tuning in live right now, if you have any questions that you want to ask, feel free to type them into the chat window, and I'll do the best I can to answer them during our chat here today. One of my personal coaching students actually was asking about this on our private Facebook group. He was asking, Kelly was asking about essential amino acids and just wanted to know the benefits of them. And this is something that it's not a must-have supplement, but it's certainly a nice-to-have supplement. And it's one that I would recommend anybody who's serious about exercise and whether it's strength training or cardiovascular conditioning or any type of athletic performance. I would definitely recommend essential amino acids. They're inexpensive, they're convenient, and they do work. Right? I mean, and the thing is, you want to time them so that you're actually consuming them when your body needs it the most. So let's just break it down. What are essential amino acids? Well, what are amino acids? First off, amino acids are the building blocks to virtually all your body tissues. Like, your body is made of mostly protein, and amino acids are the building blocks of protein. So if you take protein and you break it down to its most basic elements, you get amino acids. And there's all kinds of different amino acids that have different functions in the body. But there are essential amino acids. We got 9 essential amino acids that your body cannot produce on its own, meaning that you cannot manufacture it from other amino acids. We have non-essential ones, which your body can actually manufacture on its own, but there's 9 essential ones that you need to get through your diet. You can't produce them on your own, or your body can't manufacture them on your own. So that's what we refer to as essential amino acids, or EAAs. And you can supplement this. And very often what people do these days is you can get like a powder, like an amino acid powder. Very often that's flavored. Sometimes it might even have some electrolytes mixed in there with it as well. And you mix that in with a water bottle, and you just sip on it while you're working out or while you're exercising. And the idea behind it is it provides rapidly absorbing amino acids that get into your system very quickly. And the benefit of this is your body can actually utilize that when it needs it. When you're in the gym training and you're breaking down muscle tissue, those fast digesting amino acids can be utilized very rapidly. Whereas if you're eating solid food protein, that takes hours to digest. Like if you eat a chicken breast, first you got to chew it up, you got to digest it. That's going to be sitting in your stomach for hours before it actually gets broken down and utilized, and the body can then break it down to the amino acids and actually have it go into your bloodstream for actual amino acids and to build and repair muscle tissue. So it takes a long time for solid food to actually go from food to being utilized in the body. Whereas the amino acids, they're already broken down to their most basic element. So, I mean, when you consume them, within 20 minutes of consuming them, they could be actually utilized by your body. So very rapidly absorbed. Like you take it before your workout, you could literally be using them during the workout itself, right? That's how fast they're absorbed. So it's rapidly absorbed amino acids. And that's why we want to take it when your body needs it, when it's under high stress demands, like high intensity workouts, high intensity cardio sessions, sporting events or whatever, anything like that. This is when you can benefit from amino acid supplementation. Throughout the rest of the day, you really don't need it. Because like when you're not placing demands on your body, just your regular meals and regular protein food is fine, because there's not time is not of the essence. Like your body can just break it down and utilize it as it needs to. And as long as you're eating protein with every meal, then you're going to have a steady supply of protein in your system and keep the amino acid pool in your body topped up. But it's when you're doing high intensity exercise that amino acid supplementation can help. And plus, they taste good, right? Most of them these days, they actually taste good. So, I mean, you can add some flavor to your water and encourage you to drink more water while you're exercising. That's just another little plus. So that's what amino acids are. And I personally mix them up in my water bottle. So like when I go to the gym, I'm drinking an amino acid drink. When I go for bicycle rides, I'm drinking an amino acid drink. I just put it in my water bottle. And it's super quick, convenient, and it's a great way to just ensure that you're optimizing your strength and performance, because it'll help to minimize muscle breakdown, keep your body in a more anabolic state, and it actually provides energy. Like it's glycogen sparing, so your body can actually utilize that for the amino acids it needs versus breaking down your muscle tissue. So it can help to keep you in a more anabolic state while you're in your training phases. So that's the benefits of amino acids. It's just a slight edge. Like, I mean, you can still make progress without it. People have for years. I have for years, but I find that I make better progress with them. And you actually will find that it helps speed up your recovery, speed up your muscle gains. And then how it actually speeds up the muscle gains is by minimizing muscle loss, right? Because like we're in this balance. We're always building and losing muscle, right? And the body is ideally in homeostasis, where it's the equal ratio of building and losing muscle. So you stay the same, you plateau, right? Maintenance. We want to tip the scale in favor of more anabolism and less catabolism. And amino acids can certainly help to do that. It can help to tip that ratio to minimize muscle breakdown so that you actually build more muscle on your frame and just improve your whole recovery process while you're consuming them. So I would definitely recommend it for more advanced athletes or anybody, more advanced fitness enthusiasts, right, to consume essential amino acids. All right, let's move on. What do we got here? Eagle Eye John's joining in. We got Dario. We've got Ash-ish. Who else is there? 13 DB. AJ. Welcome, guys. Who else we got joining in? We got YT joining in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. See a lot of regulars, and I see some new names as well. So if you're new to the video chat, welcome. It's always nice to have new people tuning in. John is saying, can you train through clicking shoulders while doing shoulder exercises? If you have any joint clicks and pains, well, the thing is, clicking is not necessarily a bad thing. Like sometimes with the shoulders, the way that the joint is moving in the socket, you may get a click. Sometimes I get a click in my shoulders. Sometimes I get it in my knees or my elbows. And very often, when I do a couple sets, the clicking kind of goes away. It's almost like cracking your knuckles. Like sometimes you can crack your knuckles, but once you crack them, then they don't crack anymore because you kind of limbered up the joints. Sometimes you will get that. And that's why I always recommend doing progressively heavier warm-up sets so that you get the joints, tendons, and ligaments and everything warmed up with submaximal weights. And if you do have any clicks and cracks in the joints, you can kind of get those out. And then that kind of prepares your body when you get to the heavier sets. But it's not uncommon. A lot of people have it. And I have a click in my shoulder, and I usually get it out on that first warm-up set. It's just like popping or cracking my knuckles. Same type of sensation. So I'll do that, get that crack, like kind of realign the shoulders and sockets and everything else, and then I'm good to go for my heavier warm-up sets. But even if you have it on a continuous basis, as long as it's not causing pain and discomfort, you can still train through it. You can still do your exercises. But I want you to listen to your body and just be extra cautious. Like if you do have any pain or discomfort, obviously don't do whatever it is that you're doing, like that particular exercise variation, and try and find another exercise instead. Like, don't get hung up on the specific exercises. Focus on working the muscles. So let's just say you're doing a barbell shoulder press, and for some reason that causes pain or discomfort in your shoulders. You know, don't do it. Do another one. Maybe do a dumbbell shoulder press. Maybe do a shoulder press machine. Maybe try different grips. You know, like when it comes to your shoulder presses, especially if you're using dumbbells or machines with different handles, like maybe you can use a parallel grip. Maybe you use, the grips, wide out grip. Maybe you adjust the width, right? You go closer or wider. Like you can change it up. And especially if you're using dumbbells, you have a lot of flexibility because you're not locked into that rigid plane of motion, right? So, I mean, you have some different variations there, but don't get hung up on the exercise. Focus on working the muscle. So again, if one movement doesn't feel good, then choose another movement to work that same muscle. And of course, if you can't find one, then leave it out. Like, do not work through pain. That's one thing. Like if in doubt, leave it out. That's what I always say, because we don't want to cause any aches, pains, and injuries, because there's nothing that's going to set you back more than getting injured. We got Dario joining in from Paraguay. Did you get any of the COVID vaccines? If so, which one? I did. I don't know what's the name of it. Oh shit, I don't know what it is. Whatever. I don't have the paper in front of me, but it's the one that they were offering over at the local pharmacy. I can't remember which one it is. I think there's 3 major ones, but yes, I did get my COVID vaccine. I can't remember what one it was, but I did get it anyway. Yeah. What else we got there? Anish is joining in. We've got 13 saying, what's up? We've got Anish from Slovenia. Okay, there we go. AJ is joining in. What pre-workout would you recommend in a bodybuilding program? Pre-workout, I'm assuming pre-workout supplements. That's what I'm assuming you mean when you say pre-workout. I'm a big fan of keeping it simple. Usually a cup of coffee is more often than not my pre-workout of choice. Sometimes I will have a caffeine pill or might have some pre-workout powder, but 90+% of the time, it's just a cup of black coffee. And I find that works well because it gives me a little caffeine kick. I enjoy coffee, and it gives me a little bit of caffeine kick, but it's not too strong. And this is one of the problems that I have with a lot of the commercial supplement pre-workouts is a lot of them are overkill. A lot of them are too strong. I mean, even though I'm a coffee drinker and I drink a couple cups of coffee a day, I find that I just can't handle the stimulants and the caffeine that's in a lot of these pre-workouts these days, because it's just overkill. Like some of them got 3 and 4 and even sometimes like 500 milligrams of caffeine, which is just insane per serving, right? Like it's just nuts. And then if you factor in, like if you're consuming other sources of caffeine, whether that's from tea or coffee or soda pop or whatever, I mean, your total caffeine consumption through the day could be through the roof. I mean, I try to keep it somewhat minimum, and I try to consume the most of my caffeine in the early part of the day. I kind of like want to taper it off in the evening. So I usually have a couple of cups of coffee a day. I mean, 3 cups of coffee is pushing it for me, right? 2 is usually my normal. And I like to have one of those cups of coffee before my workout. And I find that that's enough of a little caffeine kick to give me the mental and physical pick-me-up. Because, I mean, caffeine is a performance enhancer, right? It gives you some mental focus. It does help to increase your strength and energy as well. And it also helps to curb your appetite, which is another little thing. It helps, it aids in fat burning that way. It helps to release fatty acids into the bloodstream, helps to curb your appetite. So it's a nice little workout booster. But again, you don't want to go overkill with it. So for me, just a cup of black coffee and ballpark 100 milligrams of caffeine-ish. I mean, it depends on the strength of the coffee, but For me, a typical pre-workout caffeine dose is somewhere in that 1, maybe 200 milligrams of caffeine max. That's it. I mean, like if I'm using a pre-workout powder, very often I'll even use like half a serving because I find a full serving is too much. Like there's one that I have out in the cupboard there. I think it's got like 300 milligrams of caffeine per serving. And like, there's no way I'm using a full serving of that. They'll be wired and jittery. So I use half a serving, just half a scoop, and it's more than enough. What else we got there? Any advice for training MMA and bodybuilding? Generally looking to get my perfect physique, but also mobility and work on diet and also getting better sleep. Okay, we got a lot of stuff there. You can certainly combine, bodybuilding, weight training with other sports, and they can be complementary, but you have to just factor in recovery for both. Like you can't go 100% with MMA and 100% with bodybuilding and expect to recover from it. Like you have to balance it out, right? We only have so much recovery. Like let's just kind of visualize we have 100 units of recovery, right? I mean, this is just for an example purposes. It doesn't mean you have 100 units of recovery for weight training and 100 units for MMA martial arts training. It means you got 100 total. So you could go like 50-50, like, hey, 50% of your efforts in martial arts, 50% is in strength training. Maybe it's a 60-40, 70-30, whatever, but like you can't go all out in both. You have to balance it out. And basically you have to listen to your body, because a high intensity MMA training is stressful on the body. High intensity weight training is stressful on the body. So you got to factor in the recovery time in there as well. And this is where a lot of people can go wrong with it, because initially you can get away with it, but eventually, after a few weeks, it's going to start to catch up with you and you'll start to feel the effects of overtraining. And then sometimes you're not going to be feeling fully recovered. And then you might suffer some aches, pains, and injuries along the way, especially with MMA. I mean, it can be very hard on the joints, tendons, and ligaments, depending on what it is that you're doing. I mean, like hitting a heavy bag, that's jarring on the joints, right? On your wrists, your elbows, your shoulders, your knees, your hips, everything else, whatever you're hitting the bag with. If you're doing submission grappling, and you get twisted into some arm bar, leg bar, Kimura, whatever, that's, hey, buddy.
I'm Dr. Harvey.
Oh, we got Dr. Harvey joining in. Look at you.
Are you hot?
You got a doctor's kit?
You got a hot arm because on the screen it said that you had a hot arm.
I might. What?
But we are pretending.
Okay, we're pretending. Okay. So are you going to be a doctor?
Yeah.
Okay. Here, some of these people might need your assistance. There's a guy here asking about martial arts and bodybuilding. Like martial arts, like karate. Do you know how to do karate? You show him a karate move. There. And show him a bodybuilding pose. Front double bicep. There. Okay. So this is how you combine MMA and bodybuilding. Right? So again, do a karate move. Karate kick. And a front double bicep.
Watch this when I put my mask on.
And a front double bicep. Here, Daddy's going to finish his video chat and then he's going to come out and play with you. And we can play karate or doctor or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay?
I'll come and check on you later.
Okay, you check on me later, Dr. Harvey. Thank you, bud. Now, some valuable lessons. Words of wisdom from Dr. Harvey. What were we talking about? What was this? Okay, recovery. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Recovery from bodybuilding and MMA training. Like you have to factor that in. That's the biggest thing. I mean, you can still do both, but just factor in the recovery. And I'm speaking from experience because several years back, I went through a phase where I was doing some MMA and some boxing training. And in my early days, I used to do martial arts. Like I started off with Kung Fu before I ever got involved with bodybuilding and weight training. So, I mean, I have some experience with both sides of it. And again, I'm speaking from experience here that you can't go 100% with both, right? You have to balance it out. And that's the biggest thing is just going to be your recovery because you have to factor that in. And it's not just recovery in terms of like feeling energy or feeling tired or anything like that. It's joints, tendons, and ligaments. And this is something, especially as you get older, sometimes you need to factor in more recovery time. And it's not because you're feeling overtrained or you're feeling exhausted or whatever. It's just that your joints, tendons, and ligaments need time to recover, especially as they get older. They're not as forgiving, right? So this is something that I've noticed. And for me, I usually do 3 weight training workouts a week, right? Usually on non-consecutive days. So workout one day, and then I might do some sort of cardio training the next, weight training one day, cardio training the next. And I find by alternating them, it really helps me to just balance things out and have, that ideal ratio of recovery. Because if I try and do weight training back to back to back, after a couple weeks, my joints, tendons, and ligaments are going to be just aching. And I'm going to have like tennis elbow and tendonitis and all kinds of flare-ups. And it's just because the joints are not getting adequate recovery, right? So you need to factor that in there as well. So in your case, I mean, maybe a couple MMA sessions a week, a couple hard bodybuilding workouts. And if you're doing any other weight training or cardio on top of that, it's going to be challenging, right? So I'm just thinking right now, 2 hard weight training workouts, 2 hard MMA sessions, and then maybe a couple easy active recovery days in there where you're doing some gentle exercise, whether it's low intensity cardio, yoga, stretching, something along those lines. I mean, that's probably what you'd be able to do sustainably over the long term. But again, it's really going to depend on you and your priorities. All right, what else we got there? John's asking, does protein repair muscle? Carbs grow the muscle more than protein? Protein is the building blocks of muscle. Like muscle is basically protein. That's the most protein and water. That's the majority of what muscle is. Carbohydrates are your energy source. So carbohydrates aren't growing it, but it's your fuel source. And fat is also a fuel source. But carbs are like your high octane fuel. Carbohydrates are the fuel you burn when you're doing high intensity exercise, the faster burning energy. Fat is the low octane fuel, stuff that you burn when you're just doing very low intensity exercise, like just sitting around. Like right now, I'm sitting around on my ass doing nothing. The calories I'm burning are primarily coming from body fat. Whereas when I'm working out, the calories I'm burning are primarily coming from glycogen, which is stored carbohydrates. When you're working hard, you're burning carbohydrates. When you're just doing easy, low intensity day-to-day stuff, you're primarily burning body fat. And then protein is the repair material that's building and repairing the muscle tissue. And of course, protein can be used for a fuel source as well if you don't have adequate carbs and fat in your system as well. But that's generally how it goes. Now, with that being said, like you're always burning a ratio of carbohydrates and fat, but it's just like if it's low intensity, you're burning more fat. If it's higher intensity, you're burning more carbohydrates. But they're always burning a ratio of them. It's never like it's not like you shut off one and turn on the other. You're always burning carbs, you're always burning fat, and you're always breaking down protein, right? You're always in a state of protein turnover. So that's why you want to have frequent feedings throughout the day with adequate sources of protein, carbs, and fat. And just to kind of throw some general numbers out there, like for those of you who are like wondering, well, what's the ideal ratios? A good place to start is try to have a well-balanced diet, like 1/3 your calories from protein, 1/3 your calories from carbs, 1/3 from fat. That's a good starting point for most people. And then you can manipulate it based on your activity level, your body type, your goals, all that kind of stuff. So like if you're doing more high intensity exercise, long duration exercise, like an endurance athlete, for example, maybe you want to bump up the carbohydrates a bit. If your main goal is fat loss, maybe you want to cut back the carbohydrates a little bit. But start off with a balanced ratio, 1/3 protein, 1/3 carbs, 1/3 fat. That's a good place to start. And then you can manipulate it based on how your body responds. That's very often what I do with a lot of my coaching students. Like we usually start off with that well-balanced diet, and then we just monitor their progress and we adjust things accordingly. All right, we have YT saying, Lee, how do you calculate calories? For example, Google says 8 ounces of chicken breast has 374 calories, but Google also says there's 68 calories per ounce of chicken. 68 times 8 equals 544 calories, which doesn't match the 374 calories. Isn't protein 4 calories per gram, and 8 ounces is 226 grams according to Google conversion? 226 times 4 is 904 calories, which doesn't match the 374 or the 544. I'm very confused. No shit, Sherlock. I'm confused just reading your comment. All right. First off, let's break this down. The chicken is not pure protein, right? So you can't say 8 ounces of chicken is 8 ounces of pure protein. It's not. It's somewhere in the vicinity of 20% protein. It really depends, because some of the processed chicken breasts that you buy have more meat protein than others. But on average, I mean, I could do a Google search for it now, but I'll just stick to I don't want to over confuse things even more. But meat, chicken, fish, all that stuff, like, you can't take the weight of the food and say that's how much protein. Like, if you have a 1 pound steak, it doesn't mean it's 1 pound of protein, right? Because it's only about 20% protein. That's how much protein is actually in it, because there's water weight, there's other vitamins and minerals and fat and everything else contained in it as well. So it's not pure protein. That's what I'm getting at. Right? Even your protein powder is not pure protein. Yeah, because I mean, like, there's going to be some carbohydrates. There's going to be some fat in there as well. Like, it's not all pure protein, right? Same thing with any food. It's not pure unless it's an isolated food. Like, if you take table sugar, okay, that's pure sugar. Or if you take oil, that's pure oil. But if you take meat, it's not pure protein, because there's some fat in there, right? And there's also, vitamins and minerals and other things in there. There's water weight in there. So it's not, so the numbers are not going to add up like you're saying there. Another thing you got to realize too is it depends on, are you looking at raw weight? Are you looking at cooked weight? Sometimes this can give you skewed numbers, because obviously there's differences in the nutritional value of 8 ounces of raw chicken versus 8 ounces of cooked chicken, because the cooked chicken is going to have a lot of the water weight out of it. So it's going to be more condensed. So you're actually getting more condensed chicken if it's cooked versus if it's raw. Another thing too, when it's cooked, sometimes some of the fat content has been dripped away, because I mean, like, so it changes. It changes the nutritional information, whether it's raw or cooked. So this is where it can really get confusing sometimes. Bottom line, like, don't get too hung up on the numbers. Focus on the portions. Focus on the habits. That's what I would recommend. Just a second. I'm just going to haul through the door there. Harvey Daddy's going to come up in a minute there, bud. All right. Harvey's just in the next room there, playing with his doctor's kit. All right. So what I would focus on the portion sizes and just your nutritional habits, and then adjust your food intake based on portion. So let's just say you're eating 8 ounces of chicken and you want to scale it up. Then, of course, you just focus on eating more. You want to scale it back and do so based on how your body responds. So, like, for example, if your goal is to lose weight, then you want to scale it back and have smaller portions. Or if you want to gain weight, you bump it up, have higher portions. But don't get too hung up on the calorie counting, because it's not as precise as a lot of people think. And this can be confusing sometimes, because even if you're looking at food labels are legally allowed to be off by 20%. So if you pick up a package that has a nutritional label on it, that could be 20% high or 20% low. And it's legally allowed to be so. They have that margin of error built in. So if it says there's 100 calories per serving, it might be 120 calories, it might be 80 calories, or anywhere in between, and it's good to go. So you can't bank on these numbers as exact science, right? Because it's just a general estimation. That's all it is. It's a guesstimation, right? Focus on the habits, focus on the portion sizes, and then adjust your food based on that. That's what I do. Like, prime example, when I got ready for my most recent bodybuilding show that I did back in July, I mean, I dieted down. I got my leanest contest condition ever. I never counted calories once. All I did was focus on portions, right? I purposely just scaled back the portions and made sure to eat more high volume, nutrient dense foods and less of the high calorie dense foods, right? Just made better choices and more conscious with the portion sizes. But I never broke out my Fitness Pal. I never counted calories. I never got strict with all the numbers like you're doing here, going in, typing in like how many calories per this and that and the other thing and blah, blah, blah. I never did any of that. I just focused on the portions and adjusted it accordingly based on how my body was responding. And that's what I recommend you get into as well. I mean, I'm not saying that calorie counting and macro counting and all that is bad, but it's not exact. So like these numbers, like you're saying, okay, the 374 calories, like that could be way off. That could be over 400 calories. That could be in the low 300 calories. Like we don't know, right? Like these numbers are not exact, right? That's the thing. And it's frustrating because a lot of people put a lot of faith into these numbers, but they're not solid. Again, there's a 20% margin of error on every nutritional label. And that's what's legally allowed, right? Now, they could be way off and still getting away with it because, there's not always the quote unquote food police out there doing analysis of the food to see, okay, does the food in the package actually make the nutritional label numbers? Like, are they within the guidelines or are they way off? Like every now and then you'll see sometimes like people do a third-party analysis of food products and like it could be way off what the nutritional label says. Like I remember a few years back, I was reading, there was a few people really cracked down on some protein powders because they were claiming like really high numbers, like high protein counts per scoop. And when people started actually crunching the numbers, the actual protein content was about half of what they were claiming it to be, right? Because, there's not, it's not exact. I mean, they have that 20% margin of error there legally anyway, but if they bend the rules a little bit, then they can even be way outside the margins. And very often they're getting away with it because nobody's there to actually verify the numbers. So bottom line, don't put too much stock in nutrition labels. Just use it as a general guideline, right? But don't base your results based on a nutrition label. Jason's joining in saying appreciate it. Keep it up. Thank you, Jason. Glad that you're enjoying the video chat and the content. We got Mike joining in. What's he saying? He says, good morning. Obviously, Mike must be over in the other side of the world where it's morning. He says, good morning. As I'm always on my feet and physical at work, plus training, plus hiking, etc., I have really sore feet all the time. Have you experienced this? Any advice? I mean, I have had sore feet from time to time, and it's usually related to footwear. I mean, that's one thing that you want to really look into, making sure that you have good, comfortable footwear, good shoe inserts, right? Like that could be a loaded question because, I mean, if this is a chronic thing, chronic pain that you're having in your feet, I would recommend like getting it checked out by a specialist and seeing like maybe you need some special shoe inserts or insoles to help with this, to help align your feet better. Because like we all have different shaped feet, different height arches and all this kind of stuff. And if you can get an insert into your shoes that actually match your foot type, it can make a huge difference. I know my father had to do this recently. And he went to a specialist, he got his feet tested and measured and however the heck they do it and stuff. But he got custom made shoe inserts to put into all these shoes. So he puts them into his work boots or into his sneakers and stuff like that. And has made a huge difference for him because it helps keep his feet in the proper alignment. Whereas if you don't have any of that, then especially if you're on your feet a lot, it could really, cause some aches and pains. So that's what I would probably recommend is looking into a specialist, an orthopedic specialist, I think it is, someone who can really help you with this. But I've never dealt with that myself. But I know my father has. But that's what I would recommend in that situation if you're having chronic foot pain. What else we got there? We have Undead Heart saying, Lee, your tea time accompanied my move into my first home. Well, congratulations on moving into your first home. That's always a big milestone. Like your home is always, for most people, it's probably the biggest investment you'll ever make. And that's a big move. Congratulations. Ironically, the home that I'm in now is my first home ever. And I moved into it back in 2002. And right now we own it free and clear, which is nice. And it's a humble home, but it meets our needs. And I have no intentions of moving anytime soon. So it's home sweet home. But again, congratulations and thanks for tuning into the chat. Let's see what else we got there. Some people were chatting about Harvey's interruption into the chat earlier. If you missed it, Harvey came in and did some martial arts and bodybuilding pose demonstrations for us all. Right, definitely worth checking the replay if you're just joining in now. We got Neil tuning in. Says, Lee, I've been doing full body compound movements for almost a year, and I'm starting to feel bored. The only progressive overload I do is tempo changes and weight increase. Is this normal? Yeah, I mean, you can get bored with any routine, and the simple answer is change it up. And there's a lot of things you can do. If you still like full body workouts, you can still do full body workouts, but just change up the exercise variations, right? So, like, for example, instead of doing a flat barbell bench press, maybe do an incline press, maybe do a dumbbell press, maybe use a chest press machine. Like, you can change up the exercise variations. Maybe do dips or weighted push-ups or something like that. You know, instead of squats, you could do front squats, or you could do leg presses or hack squats or lunges. I mean, like, you can do other exercises to work the same muscles and still stick to your full body program. And this is what I do. I mean, I love full body workouts. Over the last few years, I've really gotten into total body workouts where I'm hitting multiple muscle groups over the course of a training session, and basically just doing one or two exercises for each muscle group, and, you know, getting a lot of variety within the training session. So I don't go in there and say, okay, today is chest day and I'm going to just annihilate chest, or today is back day and I'm going to annihilate back. And no, I do a little bit for all my major muscle groups. Now, sometimes I might, you know, have a upper body, more prioritize the upper body, and other days I might prioritize more lower body. But generally speaking, I'm kind of like doing total body, but I'm changing up the exercises. It's not always the exact same exercises day in, day out. So, like I just mentioned, I mean, some days, hey, I could be doing a barbell bench press. Next day it could be a dumbbell bench press. Next day it could be a hammer strength chest press machine. Some days it could be a squat. Some days it could be a hack squat. It could be a front squat. It could be a leg press. It could be lunges. You know, when it comes to the back, it could be rows. It could be deadlifts. It could be pull downs, pull ups. Like, what? Like, you can change it up. Like, if you got a well-equipped gym, you got tons of different exercises for all your major muscle groups. Take advantage of it. And ideally, keep records on all those different exercises in your training journal, so that when you go back to doing those exercises again, you know where you left off and know where you can strive to improve next time. And generally speaking, when you do change up your exercises, so let's just say you're switching from flat barbell bench to incline dumbbell bench, right? I mean, in that transition, you're probably going to be a bit weaker. But after a few weeks, you're going to build up the strength so that you're probably be up to your previous best, and then probably even surpass that. And then when you do hit some new records, you know, just make note of them. And then when you do switch up your exercises and go through a rotation again, eventually when you come back to doing that same exercise again, then you have the records of, okay, what was my PR in that exercise before? And then you can work up to getting back up to that personal record and then even surpassing it. And that's the cool thing when you cycle through your exercises like this. You know, you can make steady progress that way with a variety of different exercises, and it makes the process a lot more fun and enjoyable. So that's what I'd recommend. I mean, if you enjoy the total body workout, keep doing it. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to total body workouts, and just change up the exercise selections. And of course, you can also change up the set and rep patterns as well. Like, you can do higher reps, lower reps. I mean, there's a ton of variation that you can throw into a workout routine. It doesn't have to be same old stuff over and over again and boring, right? Like, there's a lot of variety. And another one you can even look into as well, and this is a great way to change up and get some variety, change the gym. If you're getting bored of doing the same workout at the same gym and everything else, try another gym, especially if you live in a place where you have multiple gyms available. Try training at a different gym from time to time. I mean, that's a great way to add variety. And a lot of times you'll go in there and there'll be different machines, even though it's probably like the same exercise, but just doing it on a different brand of machine. Like, if you're doing a pull down on one machine and versus a pull down on another, or a leg press on one versus a leg press on another, it could feel totally different, and you may enjoy that change as well, and just the atmosphere change. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways to incorporate change into your routine. You just got to get creative and do it. What else we got there? We have Sherry Ash, I believe. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Tips on mind muscle connection with the rear delts and mind muscle connection overall. All right, good question. You want to be able to feel your muscles working, ideally, and this is something you will develop over time. If you take someone who's brand new to working out, and it's hard for them to get that isolation where they really feel the muscles, right? Like you're doing a chest press and you really feel your chest, or you're doing a squat and you really feel your quadriceps, or you're doing a row, you really feel your lats. I mean, it takes time to develop that. And if you're in that initial beginner phase, you kind of just have to go through the motions. Like just focus on using proper form with your exercises, trying to minimize momentum and cheating and that kind of stuff, and just use a slow, controlled form. And generally that will help, but it's still going to take some time. If you have a trainer with you, this is where hands-on can really help. Like especially if you have a good personal trainer who knows what they're doing. Because like one strategy that a lot of experienced trainers will use and coaches when they're in the gym working with people one-on-one is they'll actually tap the muscle that you're supposed to feel. So let's just say you're doing a row and you have the trainer stand there like, okay, you're I don't know, some seated row machine. You're doing a seated row and you're going through the motion. And even if you had the trainer just kind of like stand behind you and just like tap your lats, just with their fingers, like just tap, 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 just a little like tap on the muscle, tap, tap, tap. Just that, sending that sensation to the muscle. Then all of a sudden, like it sends that link to your brain. Okay, this is the muscle I'm trying to fire. And it can actually help you to get a better contraction in that muscle. Same thing, like if you're doing rear delts, right? Like say you're using some sort of machine or you're using resistance bands or whatever, and you had someone like a trainer or a coach behind you and they were just tapping your rear delts. So you can actually feel tap, 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 tap just on that muscle. That just makes your body aware, you know, that tapping sensation. Okay, this is where I'm supposed to feel that muscle contracting. And it'll just bring that mind-muscle connection to there instantly. So that's a good little strategy. But of course, you need someone there, you know, either ideally an experienced coach who knows this stuff and they can help you with that. But even when you're doing it on your own, like you can just really try and really focus on the body parts that you're working on. But the thing is, forget the weight. Like, don't get hung up on ego lifting and thinking you have to lift a certain weight or whatever. Like, start light and try and feel the muscles contract with light weights. Because if you can make the muscles contract with light weights, then as you increase the weight, you're just going to increase the quality of that contraction. And this applies especially for isolation exercises. It applies a lot for back exercises. Like, the back is really hard because where it's out of sight, out of mind, it's hard to visualize the muscles. Whereas the front of the body, you know, like your chest, well, you can look down and you can see your chest, or your biceps, right? You can look down and see your biceps. Even when you're like your quadriceps, if you're doing like a leg extension, you look down and see your quadriceps. Or, I mean, it's easy to get that visualization with muscles that you see on the front of your body, but with the back, it's harder. So you really want to focus on squeezing and contracting and using submaximal weight and trying to actually feel the muscles work with light weight. And then once you get that feeling, then gradually increase the weights while still keeping that feeling. Because a lot of times, if you just lift for the sake of lifting, like momentum and just using other muscle groups to assist the exercise can kind of take over. And then you're simply moving weight without getting that true mind-muscle connection. And this often happens. Yeah, so it's a tricky one for sure, but rest assured, like the more experience you get, this is something that's going to evolve with time, right? Like it's as your muscles get bigger, it's going to be easier for you to actually feel them. And it will change and evolve. Like, for example, there's exercises that I used to do when I was younger and I couldn't get a pump. I couldn't get a mind muscle connection with them. But now that I'm more experienced and I'm more developed, and I'm more in tune with my body, I actually love those exercises. Like, prime example, when I was in my early days of bodybuilding, if I were to do like a dumbbell fly for the chest, I didn't feel anything. Like I go through the motions and like, okay, I just feel strain on the joints, tendons, ligaments, but I'm not getting any muscle activation from this. Now, when I do dumbbell flies, I actually feel my chest stretch and I feel the muscles working, and I really get a good pump from that exercise. But that's something that took a long time to develop over several years of training. Other exercises like Romanian deadlifts. Like when I started off, I mean, I could never feel my hamstrings when I did those exercises. But now I really get a good pump in the hamstrings when I do a Romanian deadlift. Like rows, another prime example. Like I would do rows and I would just heave and jerk the weight up. I mean, yes, I was moving the weight, but I never actually felt the lats contract, you know, getting that muscle contraction. I was just simply heaving and moving weight. Whereas now I actually feel the lats contract and I can feel all the different muscles. Like, you know, whether it's if it's a low row, feeling the low lats, if it's a high row, feeling the upper back, you know, if I'm doing stuff for the rear delts, you can feel that as well, because I just built that mind muscle connection, that awareness within the body over several years of training. All right, let's move on. What else we got there? So now have a drink. Wet the whistle. Holy crap, I've been going for an hour, so I'm going to clue it up very soon. We've got Bam Bam joining in. I've been having shoulder issues. Bench is very painful at certain weight. Popping pain after squats. Any tips? All right. One thing that can certainly help with the shoulder health is making sure that you are balancing out your shoulders. Like it's quite common to have shoulder pain when you're doing bench presses, even common to have shoulder pain when you're doing squats as well, because just that movement of having the barbell across your back places a lot of stress on the shoulders. So a good shoulder warm-up is beneficial. And for this, just do a YouTube search for Lee Hayward shoulder warm-up, because I actually have a video going through a full mobility shoulder warm-up routine. So that's something that you can look for. So just do a search for Lee Hayward shoulder warm-up. But another thing that you really want to focus on as well, making sure you're doing adequate rear delt work and prioritize the rear delts with your shoulder training, because years of benching, years of pressing, very often the front delts get more stimulation than the rear delts. Like most beginners and intermediates neglect the rear delts because, again, it's out of sight, out of mind. It's not a show-off muscles. Like nobody focuses on it in the early days of training unless they were coached by someone right from the start. So most average people are not training their rear delts nearly enough. So you want to prioritize that, because if you have an imbalance where the front delts are overdeveloped compared to the rear delts, it's going to pull the shoulders out of alignment and it's going to be a root cause of a lot of shoulder injuries. So make sure to prioritize rear delt work. And another big one, if any exercise is causing pain, don't do that exercise. Find another variation instead. So if the bench is causing pain, find another bench press variation. Try an incline press. Try a dumbbell press. Try a chest press machine or something. Try a push-up. Like, just change it up. Try a narrower grip. Very often, like if you're doing wide grip bench press, that places a lot more strain on the shoulders. If you do a narrower grip, a lot of times it takes some of the strain off the shoulders. So like, try different variations of that exercise to see if you can come up with one that works for you. When it comes to the bench press in particular, a common mistake that a lot of people make is they do their bench presses with their elbows flared out wide. You want to tuck your elbows down. So have your upper arm at a 45-degree angle with your torso. When your upper arms are tucked in and you're lowering the barbell lower on your chest, generally below the nipple line, that's like right where the pecs and abs meet, that line, that crease, that's where I tend to lower the barbell when I'm doing bench presses, and I keep it low. That takes some of the rotation out of the shoulders, places more of the emphasis on the pecs and triceps, and it's generally safer and healthier for the shoulders. So that's something that you can look into. But even if that causes pain, then do another variation instead. Like try a dumbbell or try a chest press machine or something else, and see if you can work the muscle without aggravating the joints, tendons, and ligaments. Same with the squats. You know, if the squats are bothering you, try a different variation, maybe a hack squat, or maybe a front squat, or maybe a leg press or something like that. Like, just see if you can work the muscles without aggravating the joints, tendons, and ligaments. Even the safety squat bar, like that was why that was developed. If you have access to a safety squat bar, that could be possibly more comfortable for your shoulders. If you're not familiar with what that is, Google search it, safety squat bar. But those are some tips that you can certainly try in the meantime. But the bottom line, anytime an exercise hurts, causes pain, discomfort, don't do it. Find another variation. And if you can't find a variation, then leave it out. Like, do not work through the pain, because that's just going to ultimately set you back even further. All righty, what else we got there? RC is saying, it is getting cold in New Brunswick. Cycling will be tough. The cold slows me down. Excuse me. I can totally relate to that. Here in Newfoundland, we've been having cold weather as well. All October, actually, has been like single degrees, cold, rain most of the time. So like it's cold. And the colder the temperatures, the harder it is for cardiovascular conditioning as well. Like if you're pushing yourself when it's cold out, it's harder. You know, breathing in that cold air, you're not going to have the same stamina, the same performance as when you're breathing in warm air or ideal temperature air. Like, I mean, it works both ways as well. Like if you're breathing in really hot air, like if you're somewhere like, you know, in Death Valley and it's, 45 degrees Celsius, and you're breathing in, stupid hot air, like that's not going to help your performance either. But if you're breathing in like somewhere around 20 degrees Celsius or somewhere in that range, like that's kind of like optimal, you'll find that your performance is way better. But if you're breathing in air that's in the low single digits or even in the freezing temperatures, man, like that definitely slows down your conditioning for sure. Like you got to work harder, and I find that myself. Like when I go for bike rides now in the fall, and even in the winter time when I go fat biking in the snow, I mean, I'm working it, right? Because it's so much harder when you're breathing in that cold air. So I can totally relate to where you're coming from with that. What else we got there? We have YT saying, how do I stop myself from feeling hungry after eating an appropriate size portion of food? I often find myself still very hungry after a normal size portion of food the average man eats. Well, you got that's very vague, right? Like if what's appropriate, what's normal, and everything else. Because what one person considers normal or appropriate could be totally different from another person. I'll be upfront and honest. I eat a lot of food volume, a lot. Like when I sit down to the meal to eat, the volume of food that I consume is more than normal, but I'm eating high volume, nutrient dense, low calorie dense foods. So for example, like I'll get a large garden salad, and that's one of my things. Like I have this at least once a day, and I'll buy the big bags of pre-made salad from the grocery store, and I'll eat the whole bag myself. So, normally a typical family might make up the salad and divvy it up amongst 3 or 4 people. I sit down and eat the whole darn thing myself, right? So, I mean, I fill up on this, I get a giant like cake mixing bowl, fill it up with garden salad, and that's some of my filler food. So I'm eating a lot of food volume, but when you look at the calories are low, so I mean, like, don't get, that's the secret to staying full, is you want to stay full on the volume and the high nutrient foods. So, I mean, I'll eat lots of vegetables. I eat lots of protein. I mean, every meal's got to have protein and veggies. That's my non-negotiable right there. And then I fill up on other filler foods as well. But try and get the high volume food in there, and that can definitely help to curb your appetite and give you that eating satiation. Other foods that are really good as well, like a lot of soups and stews, like especially if you have homemade soups and stews, but even if you get some of the store-bought ones, I mean, some of those can be good. You just want to kind of check the labels and make sure that they're not loaded with fat and sugar and stuff like that. But like bean and lentil soups, vegetable soups, soups made with like lean beef or chicken and stuff like that. I mean, this is great as well for adding volume. Like to give you like a high volume filling meal. I mean, if you had like a large garden salad, a large bowl of like bean and lentil soup, along with some protein, whether it's chicken, meat, fish, whatever, like you could have a big meal where you sit down and you physically eat a lot of food, but you're still keeping your calories in check, and you're getting a lot of good quality nutrition in there as well. So, I mean, this is how you stay full and stay lean at the same time. So, I mean, I'm not eating appropriate size portions. I'm eating massive portions, but the portions and the foods that I'm eating are low calorie dense. And that's how I'm able to stay full and stay lean at the same time. All right, I'm going to get ready and clue this up, guys, because I have a lot of stuff to do. In fact, right now, once I finish up this video chat, I'm going to be launching the Lose Your Gut Challenge group. And if you're friends with me over on Facebook, or if you've been following along with my emails, you've heard me mention this throughout the week. We've got a group of guys now ready to go through another Lose Your Gut Challenge. And if you're not familiar with what the Lose Your Gut Challenge is, it's a 5-day virtual coaching program that I do over on Facebook. So I set it up. It's a private group, invite only. And we've got somewhere in the vicinity of 180 people lined up ready to go through this right now. So I'm going to head on over to the Facebook group and get ready to launch that, because we're actually going to launch the group tonight and then kicking it off tomorrow morning. And that will be the start of the Lose Your Gut Challenge. And this is kind of like my one-stop shop where we're going to go deep into a virtual coaching program, outlining the fundamentals of nutrition, fat loss, and sustainability. So how you can actually lose the gut, build lean muscle, enjoy the process, and not feeling like you're starving yourself on a diet. So that's a very intensive coaching program that we're going to be going through. So I'm going to be setting that up now. And I know some of you probably already registered for that. If you haven't, unfortunately, the doors are closed. We have already a max capacity right now, but I'm going to be launching that. So that's what I'm going to head on over and do right now. And if you have any questions or comments or feedback about today's video chat, or you would like some help, feel free to reach out to me. You can email me personally at leeh@leehayward.com. Again, that's leeh@leehayward.com. Or friend me up over on Facebook and message me through there. I'm active over there. And in the meantime, have yourself a great weekend. Have yourself a great Halloween. And I'll talk to you next week. Same time, same place. Take care. Over and out.